The guitar riff is the most powerful 3 seconds in music. Some of these were born in hotel rooms. One was born in a casino fire. One was born in a dream. One was written by a 17-year-old with no fingertips. One was literally recorded while the guitarist was asleep. We're going to talk about all of it because the riff isn't just the music, the riff is the story. 10 entries, 10 stories. Let's start the countdown. Number 10, 7 Nation Army. The White Stripes, 2003. And yes, I can already hear some of you. Bear with me. 7 Nation Army, Jack White, 2003. Here's what you need to know about this riff right out of the gate. It isn't played on a bass guitar, not a single note. What you're hearing is a 1950s K hollow body guitar run through a Digitech whammy pedal, drop down an entire octave. The White Stripes never had a bass player. Jack White found a workaround, and in doing so, he accidentally created the most recognized musical phrase of the 21st century. That circling 7-note descent, you know it. Soccer stadiums know it. Football stadiums know it. Political rallies and World Cup celebrations know it. The chant version started at a UEFA Champions League game in Belgium in 2003. Club Brugge fans started singing it after a goal, and within 3 years, it was Italy's unofficial World Cup theme. Jack White has said publicly he still doesn't fully understand it. And here's the moment that stops you cold. The title, 7 Nation Army, a phrase that sounds enormous, mythological, came from Jack White mishearing Salvation Army as a small child in Detroit. He kept the name because it was interesting. The riff itself, he came up with it at a soundcheck in Australia. He thought it might work as a James Bond theme one day. A record label executive told him it wasn't good enough. The rhythm wasn't great either, apparently. That same riff is now the most Googled guitar phrase on the planet. And if you've ever been in a stadium when 60,000 people suddenly start humming that descent in unison, whether you're watching football or anything else, you know that's not just a song anymore. That's a reflex, a signal, something primal wrapped in 5 notes. Sometimes the gatekeepers are completely, historically wrong. And sometimes a melody born at a sound check outlives every committee decision ever made about it. But 7 Nation Army is only 22 years old. The riffs that follow it, most of them go back decades. Some of them go back to the literal birth of rock and roll. That's why it lands at 10, coming in at number 9. Number 9, Enter Sandman Metallica, 1991. Number 9, July 1990, 2 or 3 in the morning. Kirk Hammett's given both times in different interviews, and at that hour the details blur. He's been listening to Soundgarden's Louder Than Love on a loop. He picks up his guitar. 2 bars come out. He records them on a cassette, puts the guitar down, and goes to sleep. The next day, Lars Ulrich hears it. He changes one structural thing. The first bar should repeat 3 times before the second bar resolves. That's it. That breathing room, that space where nothing happens but anticipation, is what gives Enter Sandman its feeling of something slowly creeping towards you in the dark. The whole song is built on those 2 bars. And James Hetfield, Metallica's primary lyricist, I'm the last person in the band to finish his contribution, brought his original lyrics to the table in 1991. They were about crib death, a baby who dies in the night, a family shattered. Bob Rock and Lars Ulrich told him it wasn't as strong as it could be. Hetfield got furious. Quote, I'm the writer here. Went away, rewrote it, turned something too literal into something more psychologically unsettling, a child's mind being shaped and distorted by adult fear. The prayer in the bridge, now I lay me down to sleep. That's Bob Rock's son's voice, the producer's own kid reciting a nighttime prayer inside a Metallica song. It's just a face under your bed. If you were a rock kid in the 90s or had an older sibling who was, you know what this riff meant when it came out. After years of Metallica building toward the impossible, they stripped everything back. 2 riffs. The Black Album sold 30 million copies. Kirk Hammett's 3 a.m. idea became the song that introduced an entire generation to heavy music. And some of y'all heard this for the first time at a very specific age. You already know the one. Number 8. This riff didn't come from a studio. It came from a factory floor and a decision not to quit.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 8, Iron Man by Black Sabbath, 1970. (1970) Rehearsal room, Birmingham, England. Drummer Bill Ward starts playing a boom, 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 and slow, heavy, no hurry. Tony Iommi hears it, and his fingers go somewhere low, somewhere dark. And the Iron Man riff appears on the spot, out of the air. Here's what I want you to sit with. Tony Iommi lost the tips of his right-hand ring and middle fingers in a sheet metal factory accident when he was 17 years old. His last day of work before going professional. He nearly quit guitar entirely. It was a record by Django Reinhardt, the jazz guitarist who lost fingers in a caravan fire and played anyway, that gave Iommi a reason to keep going. He made prosthetic fingertips from melted plastic bottle tops, switched to lighter strings. I tuned his guitar down to ease the pressure on what was left of his hand. That lower tuning, darker, heavier, more ominous, became the sound of heavy metal. Not because it was planned, because Tony Iommi was in pain and needed the strings looser. Iron Man couldn't exist without that accident. The loss that should have ended his career gave him the sound that defined a genre. Ozzy Osbourne was the one who pointed at the riff and said it sounded like a big Iron Man walking. Geezer Butler took that image and wrote a closed-loop tragedy around it. A man who travels to the future, sees the apocalypse, gets trapped in iron on his way back, returns, and in his bitterness causes the very catastrophe he tried to prevent. The song eats its own tail. And if you've ever heard that riff, that slow, grinding, in a 4-note descent, you know it doesn't sound like anything else from 1970, because nothing from 1970 had ever come from a place quite like Iommi's hands. If you're nodding right now, you've always understood what Black Sabbath started. But before Sabbath, before Zeppelin, before all of it, there was one man who built the entire language. Number 7 takes us back to where it all begins. Number 7, Johnny B. Goode by Chuck Berry, 1958. 1958, Chess Records, Chicago. And I need you to understand something before we even get to the riff. Without what happens in this entry, there is no list. Not this one. Not any guitar riff countdown ever made. There's no Zeppelin, no Sabbath, no Metallica, no White Stripes. There's no rock guitar as a concept. Johnny B. Goode, Chuck Berry. The song is about a young guitarist from Louisiana who can't read or write, but plays his guitar just like ringing a bell. Berry wrote the original lyric as Colored Boy. He changed it to Country Boy so it would get on the radio because he knew exactly what he was building and he wanted it to reach everybody. The good in the title isn't just about being good. Berry grew up on Good Avenue in St. Louis. He put himself in the song. The intro riff, Berry adapted it from Louis Jordan's 1946 song, Ain't That Just Like a Woman? The guitar break borrowed from T-Bone Walker. He stitched together fragments from two black musicians who came before him and created something no one had ever heard. That's not theft. That's how music transmits itself across generations. And it's the exact same thing every other band on this list would eventually do, whether they acknowledged it or not. John Lennon once said, if you tried to give rock and roll another name, you might call it Chuck Berry. That's not an exaggeration. That's a straight description. In 1977, NASA chose 27 pieces of music to put on the Voyager Golden Record, humanity's introduction to the universe, should any other civilization ever find it. They sent Bach, Beethoven, Muddy Waters, and they sent one pop song, this one. Because if you're only sending one rock and roll song into deep space, Johnny B. Goode is the right call. That's a legacy that outlasts the planet. But number 6 reshaped rock in a completely different direction. This one almost got thrown away. Number 6, Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses, 1988. (1986) Sunset Strip, Los Angeles. 5 guys sharing one house, broke, barely holding together. Slash is sitting around with his guitar and starts putting notes together. Not a warm-up exercise. He's been insistent about this in interviews. The warm-up story is a myth somebody else invented, and he spent years trying to correct it. It was a real riff, something he was working out note by note, the way you do when something starts pulling you forward and you don't know why. Izzy Stradlin heard it from the next room and came in to play chords underneath. Duff McKagan built a bass line around it. Steven Adler felt out of beat. Within an hour, the architecture of the song existed. Axl Rose walked in, heard it, and wrote the melody and the lyric to Erin Everly, his girlfriend at the time. And here's what gets me about this. Slash actively didn't like it. He thought it was too soft, too tender. He thought Guns N' Roses was supposed to be harder. He called the riff his circus thing, dismissive. He almost buried it. He's admitted in interviews that he deliberately tried to not push the song, that he felt it didn't fit the band's identity. Then it came out, then it hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1988, still the band's only U.S. number 1 single. Then it was everywhere. Then in 2019, the original music video became the first video from the 1980s to surpass 1 billion YouTube views. The riff Slash almost didn't share, the song he thought was a joke, became the most watched 1980s music video in streaming history. Sometimes the thing you almost threw away is the thing that lasts. Sometimes the audience understands what you made before you do. And I know some of y'all have this riff in a very specific memory a moment, a person, a summer. If that's you, you don't have to explain it to anybody. You just know. Number 5, the story gets stranger from here. Stay with me. Number 5, Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple, 1972. December 4th, 1971, Montreux, Switzerland. Deep Purple has arrived to record their new album using the Rolling Stones mobile studio, borrowed specifically for these sessions. The plan, record at the Montreux Casino. The night before sessions begin, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention are playing the venue. Deep Purple is in the audience. About 90 minutes into the show, someone fires a flare gun toward the wooden ceiling of the casino. The building burns to the ground. Ian Gillan recalled standing in the audience as the flare shot over his shoulder. Deep Purple watched the building go up from a nearby restaurant, smoke drifting across the Lake Geneva. Roger Glover woke up a few days later with the title already in his head, Smoke on the Water. The bassist as accidental poet. And they found a new space to record, a theater called the Pavilion. Richie Blackmore improvised a riff in G minor, 4 notes, harmonized in fourths, played with a finger pluck rather than a pick, brutally simple, impossible to forget. The police showed up because the noise was disturbing the neighborhood and started pounding on the doors while Blackmore was actively committing the riff to tape. Blackmore said later, "Had the Montreux police had their way, we never would have recorded Smoke on the Water." Ian Gillan has called the song a last-minute panic. The engineer told them they were several minutes short for an album. The riff and backing track had already been recorded on day 1 as a sound check. No lyrics, just a placeholder. In 10 minutes, Gillan and Glover wrote a biographical account of the entire disaster. Funky Claude in the lyrics, that's Claude Nobbs, director of the Montreux Jazz Festival, who ran into the burning building to help people escape. He's the one who later told the band the song would be a hit. They didn't believe him. If you've ever picked up a guitar for the first time and learned that opening riff in the first 2 weeks, you're not alone. That's probably the single most taught beginner riff in rock history, and it almost didn't exist. Number 4, this one was born in a dream. Number 4, Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix, 1967. December 26, 1966, backstage at the Uppercut Club in East London. Jimi Hendrix is in the dressing room before a show, billed that night magnificently as the American top soul singer, and he's toying with a riff on his guitar. His manager and producer, Chaz Chandler, hears it from across the room. Doesn't say anything complicated, just, "That's the next single. Keep working on that." Chandler had first heard the riff about 10 days earlier at Hendrix' flat, half-formed, floating, and now backstage at a club, 45 minutes before a show, Hendrix wrote the rest of Purple Haze in one sitting. Here's the detail about this riff that most biopics don't mention. That opening clash, before the riff even begins, is a tritone. The interval historically known as diabolus in musica, the devil's interval. Medieval church composers banned it. It sounds wrong because it was considered wrong for centuries. Hendrix used it as a front door, walked through it like it was nothing. That musical aggression built into the very first notes is what makes the song feel like a disruption before Hendrix plays a single recognizable phrase. Hendrix originally wrote the chorus with the line, "Purple haze, Jesus saves." Chandler talked him out of it. The original draft ran to nearly 10 pages of lyrics. Hendrix kept writing, and Chandler edited down to what you hear on the record. 1 page out of 10 became the song. When the finished recording was sent to Hendrix's American label, a note was attached. Deliberate, meaning the strange tuning, the dissonant opening, and not a mistake. The point. The Experience recorded the song in just 4 hours at Delane Lee Studios on January 11th, 1967. It reached number 3 in the UK. It premiered in America at Monterey that June. After that show, Mike Bloomfield, one of the best guitarists in the country, says seeing Hendrix play made him want to put his guitar down for a year. Number 3, this riff was made from grief, and it might be the most emotional origin story on this entire list. Number 3, Back in Black by AC/DC, 1980. February 1980. AC/DC singer Bon Scott is found dead after a night out in London. He was 33 years old. 3 days after his funeral, Malcolm and Angus Young picked up their guitars. Malcolm's reasoning was blunt. He wasn't going to sit around all year. They had to work. In the weeks that followed, Malcolm had a riff, something he'd been playing quietly for 3 weeks, a warm-up pattern he kept coming back to on the Highway to Hell tour. Heavy, swinging, 3 chords, nothing wasted. He brought a cassette tape to Angus late one night and asked a question he genuinely didn't know the answer to. Is this crap or not? It wasn't crap. When new singer Brian Johnson came in for his audition, the band played him the riff, gave him the title, Back in Black, and asked him to write lyrics. The instructions were specific. It cannot be morbid. It has to be a celebration. Johnson stood in front of the microphone, waited for the riff to come back around, and started screaming. Angus and Malcolm looked at each other and put their guitars down. They recorded the album at Compass Point Studios in Nassau, Bahamas, over 7 weeks in April and May 1980. The title track was the first thing committed to tape. Brian Johnson has said in interviews that he felt Bon Scott's presence in that room while recording the vocal, not as a ghost story, as a weight, a witness. Back in Black, the song reached number 37 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1981. Back in Black, the album, is the best-selling rock album in history, close to 50 million copies. A band in grief, 3 months removed from losing their singer, Dee created a tribute, and in doing so, made the biggest rock record ever recorded, Malcolm's 3-week-old riff. The thing he wasn't sure wasn't crap. Rolling Stone called Angus and Malcolm's dual guitar attack on that track the platonic ideal of hard rock. I'd argue they were right, but that's where I'll let you decide. Number 2, and I've been waiting to get here, because the story of this one is the strangest thing on this entire list. Number 2, Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin, 1969. Summer of 1968. Jimmy Page is on his houseboat on the River Thames at Pangbourne, England. He picks up a guitar and a 3-note riff with a rising octave appears. He described it later as addictive, like a forbidden thing. He said he knew immediately it was strong enough to carry an entire song. When he played it for the band months later, the excitement was immediate and collective. That riff became the opening track of Led Zeppelin II. BBC Radio, 2 listeners in 2014 voted it the greatest guitar riff ever recorded. Rolling Stone placed it 11th on their list of the greatest guitar songs of all time. VH1 called it the third greatest hard rock song ever, and then you have to tell the full story. Willie Dixon was a Chicago blues songwriter, arguably the most important blues composer of the 20th century. In 1962, he wrote "You Need Love," which Muddy Waters recorded for Chess Records. In 1969, "Whole Lotta Love" came out credited entirely to the 4 members of Led Zeppelin. Dixon's daughter was 13 years old when she heard the song at a friend's house. Something felt familiar. She brought the record home to her father. Dixon filed a lawsuit in 1985, 16 years after the fact. The case settled out of court. Willie Dixon received his credit and an undisclosed payment. Subsequent pressings of Led Zeppelin II now carry his name. Robert Plant discussed it in a 1990 interview. He said he needed some. Page's riff was Page's riff. It was there before anything else. I just thought, what am I going to sing? That was it, a nick. Now happily paid for. You only get caught when you're successful. That's the game. That's the game. And whether you find that cold or pragmatic probably says something about you, I'll let you sort that out in the comments. What's not debatable? That riff redefined what rock was allowed to sound like. Raw and aggressive and alive in a way that nothing before it had managed. Willie Dixon's name is on it now. That part matters. Number 1, and the story of this riff, I'd argue, is the strangest, most improbable, most accidentally brilliant thing that happened in the entire history of rock music. Number 1, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. The Rolling Stones, 1965. May 7, 1965. Keith Richards is in a motel room in Clearwater, Florida. The Stones are midway through their 3rd American tour. He keeps a tape recorder beside the bed, a habit for moments like this, and at some point in the early hours of the morning, he wakes up, half conscious, picks up a guitar, records something, and falls back asleep. He woke up the next morning with no memory of it. The tape was at the end. He rewound it. What he heard, about 30 seconds of a riff, rough, drowsy, unmistakable, and his own voice mumbling the opening line, and then about 45 minutes of snoring. That's where the riff came from, the unconscious mind of a 21-year-old guitarist alone in a Florida motel room, leaving himself a message he'd have to find in the morning. Keith Richards wrote the greatest guitar riff of all time in his sleep. He doesn't remember doing it. If the cassette had run out, or if he hadn't happened to press record in that half-conscious window, none of it exists. And then here's the part that still gets me. Keith didn't think it was a single. He thought it was a sketch for a song that would eventually be replaced by a proper horn arrangement, something with Motown brass, something more polished. The fuzz guitar he eventually used was a placeholder, a stand-in for horns. When they recorded the track at RCA Studios in Hollywood on May 12th, Richards hooked up a Gibson Maestro fuzz tone pedal to simulate what the horns would eventually sound like. The other Stones heard it, voted to release it exactly as it was, fuzz box and all. Keith was outvoted into accidentally creating a defining moment in rock history. The song hit number 1 in America in June 1965. It was the Stones' first U.S. number 1. Rolling Stone magazine later ranked it the 2nd greatest song ever recorded, across any genre, any era. Rock critic Robert Christgau called the fuzz tone guitar the first really dirty riff that's out there in rock. That's not nostalgia talking. That's the moment the vocabulary of rock actually changed. Here's what I come back to every single time. A sleeping guitarist left himself a 30-second tape. An accident of consciousness, 45 minutes of snoring, and 30 seconds of everything. And if he hadn't happened to press record at 3 a.m. in a Florida motel room, this list ends very differently. Rock music ends very differently. The greatest riff ever recorded wasn't planned. It wasn't engineered. It wasn't the product of discipline or craft in that specific moment. It just showed up, and someone was asleep and awake enough at the same time to catch it. That's number one. And I already know the comments are going to push back hard. So drop your number one below. I want to see if we agree.